Chapter 5. Andy's cabin at the lakeside was humble, among the first lodges to be constructed for the town back in the 80s. It once belonged to the mayor, Solomon J. Hudson himself. It was small, cozy, with a few throw rugs on the floor underneath the elongated furniture. Otto, a plump gray cat, sat stretched out in front of the window. In the center of the living room, standing a few feet away from the buzzing television, Elena was surrounded on all sides by brushes, balms, and paints. Hold still, Andy murmured, brow furrowed in concentration, as he carefully applied a layer of sickly blue-gray on the girl's cheeks. The girl squirmed in her spot, barely containing her enthusiasm. "This is gonna look so cool!" Elena giggled as she turned her other cheek to the boy. Cece's forearms worked in coordination as she styled Elena's hair into an elaborate updo. She laughed at the little girl's comments, especially seeing how much they appeared to get to Vic. The teen sat on the old yellow couch nearby, arms crossed tightly over his chest, his nose wrinkled. "What's with the look?" Cece asked. "Don't think I need to tell you why this feels wrong," Vic groaned. "I don't see you coming up with anything better," Andy said as he passed over Elena's face one more time with a makeup sponge. "Just make sure you keep up your end of the illusion." Yeah, Vic said as he sat up. "You about ready?" "Just one last touch," Andy said as he applied a little bit of eyeliner to the girl. Cece tilted her head. "Yo, Andy, where did you learn to do all this?" "Oh, I was actually in a few stage plays back home." "You? In a stage play?" Cece shook her head. "I can't imagine. I was just an extra, really. We didn't have a lot of kids at school that were into theater, so they had to make do with pretty much anyone who was interested. I like to work on the sets, and I already knew a few of the kids from guitar class." Andy blinked. He wondered how those kids were doing now. He wondered if they thought he was dead, or if he moved, or what. He wondered a lot about what the outside world was doing without him. As Andy wondered, Vic got up off the couch and walked over to the group. "All right, scoot over." The vampire formed a dark energy in between his palms, muttering an incantation beneath his breath. His fingers danced through the air, weaving patterns and webs that shimmered like pearls. The dark energy between his palms grew into an orb of light. With a final muttered word, Vic clapped his hands together. The orb burst, cascading down over Elena in a shower of glittering motes. The magic particles drifted through the air like confetti, settling onto the girl's head and washing her over in strange ripples of light. Elena giggled and twirled, arms outstretched as the magic encircled her. The bits clung to her hair, making it shine. Her skin took on an eerily pale cast, the makeup Andy had so carefully applied blending seamlessly to create the illusion of bloodless pallor. The girl's eyes shifted from their vibrant greens to a bright crimson, her sclera growing black as the night. Vic let out a deep breath, taking in his handiwork. "How's that look?" Vic asked the others. They all nodded to one another. "Pretty good. Just one more thing." Andy walked over to the kitchen table and picked up a dark paper crown. He brought it over to Elena and set it upon her head. "There we go." Oh, can I see?" Elena quickly hobbled over to the bathroom to peep at herself in the mirror. Vic followed after. There was no reflection to be had, not but the paper crown which adored her head. Elena squealed with delight. "You like it, Elena?" Vic asked. "It's perfect," the girl said as she continued to ogle at her paleness. "Sweet. All right. Just remember, you have to stay within 10 meters of me at all times. The spell doesn't work if you don't." "Gotcha," Elena responded, running back out to the living room. Vic's eyes widened as he made sure he kept within range. Cece passed the both of them on her way to the bathroom, hoisting a big bag over her shoulder. "I'm gonna get into my costume, then we could do pictures, all right?" "How are you gonna take my picture?" Elena asked. Vic winked. "Magic camera," as if that explained it. Oh well. Elena seemed satisfied with it. Andy was not, but he wouldn't voice it. He was preoccupied already with putting the finishing touches on his own costume. A white sweater, white pants, white shoes, all adorned with a white paper crown to contradict Elena's darker apparel. He had just finished taping the crown together, placing it now ever so delicately on top of his pompadour. "So, what are you guys supposed to be?" Vic asked as he got his camera ready. "We're supposed to be like chess pieces," Andy replied. "Chess pieces?" Vic scoffed. "Like, what, the king and the queen?" "Yeah, chess." "You're doing chess? You dork." "What's wrong with chess?" "Nothing's wrong with chess, just like, wow, that's a pick." "Let's see you come up with something last second, pal. Elena wanted to do matching costumes. I was gonna be Elvis." "I know, but chess? You couldn't have tried to do like Mario and Luigi? Or peanut butter and jelly?" "What are you talking about?" "Oh, boys," Cece called in a sing-song voice from the other room. Andy and Vic turned. Cece burst out of the bathroom in a blur of color and jingling bells. Her costume was a garish mix of reds and blues. The Zeta had transformed herself into the spitting image of a medieval court jester, complete with an oversized hat adorned with long, floppy points that each ended on a tiny golden bell. With every movement, the hat chimed merrily. Even her antenna had been decorated in pom-poms. Ta-da! Cece breathlessly struck a pose. What do you guys think? Andy gave a polite clap, though it ended abruptly when he realized nobody would be joining him. Vic shook his head. The Zeta looked a bit disappointed. What? It's Pele. Pele the Cloud? Cece, nobody knows who that is, Vic said. Tanya sheepishly raised her hand. The vampire gawked. He had almost completely forgotten she was there, she was so quiet. The over-the-top executioner's garb she sported somehow didn't help her stand out. Okay, so a few people know what that is, Vic said. Do you not like it? Cece asked. No, I like it. It's just, Cece, with how you were talking it up, I was thinking it was going to be something like cooler, Cece sniffled. More iconic. Vic decided to land on that. Like something that, I would know about. Well, Pele's actually got a huge cult following, and fellas, Andy clapped his hands together a couple times to get their attention. We were gonna do pictures, yeah? Vic nodded. The vampire set his bulky Polaroid precariously on a stack of books which lay on the coffee table, trying to angle it just right. Everyone over here, stand together. Elena, you go in the front. Vic ushered out a few orders to get to the group to make sure that everyone was in frame. Andy gently guided Elena to the front. Tanya silently took her place beside them. Cece bounced over, bells jingling with each step, and squeezed in next to Andy. As Vic lined up the shot, he eventually put his hands out as if to say, Stop! There! Perfect! Okay, everyone, on the count of 5. Click. The timer was set, and the vampire quickly rushed to join the rest. Cheese! Cece and Elena shouted. Andy and Vic mumbled along half-heartedly. The camera flashed, momentarily blinding them all. As their vision cleared, Vic hurried over to retrieve the developing photo. The darkness slowly revealed a charming scene of mismatched costumes and beaming faces. Like he promised, Elena's pale visage stood out front and center, ripe with excitement. I'd say that turned out pretty good, Vic said, the others gathering around him to get a look. Elena hopped up a few times trying to see before Vic handed her the photo. She responded by bouncing on her toes. I love it. Can I keep this? We'll get a copy of it for you, sure. Cece leaned in close. Oh, look how cute we are. Elena, you are killing it. Even Tanya's eyes crinkled with a smile behind her dark hood. Satisfied with the photo, the party began to gather their things for the festival. Andy helped Elena into a small black cloak, while Cece adjusted her jingling hat one last time. Vic carefully packed away his camera equipment, and Tanya got back to sharpening her very real axe. The cool air felt good on their faces, stepping out of Andy's cabin. The lake shimmered nearby, its surface dotted in maple leaves. The path was set. All they had to do now was walk it. The closer they got to Hudsonville proper, the more festive the atmosphere became. Rustic decorations covered every home, the scent of cinnamon permeated the grounds. Colorful booths and tents lined the cobblestone streets, each one offering games, food, or goodie bags of the supernatural variety. A few small rides were set up, such as the spinning teacups and the kiddie coaster. On the main stage, Mr. Hudson was playing a jaunty tune with his band. He could really tear it up on the saxophone. It reminded Andy of all the times him and his mother would visit the River Palooza in Harper's Ferry. He thought about all the times they brought their bag lunches out on their kayaks, munching on ham sandwiches while drifting down the river. He missed those days. He missed his mother. The group made their way through the bustling festival grounds, moving between tents and partygoers. Elena's eyes darted all over the place. She was doing her best to take in all the sights and sounds. It really was magical, all of it. Cece's bells jingled merrily with every step, drawing a curious glance from a few passerby. Spinning around, she began to address the group while walking backwards. Okay, everyone. Drew said to meet him at the Gravitron, so we should probably head there first. As the group walked, Andy had taken note of a booth selling caramel apples, one of them with an unusually large crowd gathered around it. Upon closer inspection, Andy noticed several small creatures with bulbous noses scurrying between people's feet. They bit a few passerby on the toes and were promptly kicked away. Clunes, Vic muttered, wrinkling his nose in disgust. Clunes? Andy asked. Vic took in a deep breath. Yeah, clunes, pests. Guess you haven't really been around long enough to see a proper infestation yet. Andy listened as they passed by the Hall of Mirrors, where another commotion was brewing. A haggard-looking bunny of Carney was trying to shoo away a large group of the creatures that had somehow gotten inside. Their distorted reflections bounced between mirrors as they darted out, squeaking all the while.
They've been really bad this year, I guess, Vic said, shaking his head. Fizzetti's got to shut his current place down because of them. Dang, really? Andy scratched his head as he watched the critters scurry off. They don't look that terrible. They got a pretty nasty bite, Vic said with a grimace. Next came the food stalls. A minotaur was snacking on a giant turkey leg, the savory smell making Andy's mouth water and his nostrils flare. He made a mental note of that for later. As they neared the center of the festival grounds, the whirling lights and pulsing music of the Gravitron ride came into view. The large, wheel-shaped contraption spun around and around, pinning riders to its walls via centrifugal force. Nearing the ride's entrance, Andy spotted a familiar figure leaning against the nearby lamppost. Drew stood, hands in his pockets, a cigarette dangling from his lips. The lights of the Gravitron occasionally illuminated his spooky makeup. "There he is," Andy said, pointing Drew out to the others. They made their way over, weaving through the crowd. Another group of children ran past, nearly knocking Elena over. Andy steadied her with a hand on her shoulder. "Oh, careful there," he said. Drew spotted the group approaching and flicked his cigarette to the ground. He pushed off from the lamppost and approached. "About time you kids showed up," Drew grumbled, a hint of relief in his voice. His eyes landed on Elena. "So, this is her?" Andy scowled at Cece. "You told him?" "Well, yeah, was I not supposed to?" "No! This is—" Drew put a hand up. "Chill out, little man. I'm not a snitch." He nodded at Elena. "Cool costume." "Thanks," she cheerily replied. "Drew," Cece did a small flourish. "What do you think?" "Nice. Jester. I like it," Drew said, nodding a few times. "Well, it's not just a jester, it's like supposed to be Pele." Cece sighed. "Anyway, forget it." "What do y'all want to try first?" Andy asked, taking initiative. "I know what I'm going for." Drew nodded toward the Gravitron. The line seemed to go on for a good few yards, but it was nothing too bad. Plus, the ride was usually over in about a minute. The only one who lingered behind as the others got in line was Andy, as his stomach had never quite agreed with the spinning. He didn't mind staying back, however. There had been a big, fat turkey leg calling his name for some time now. Over the course of the next 2 hours, the gang did their best to enjoy every attraction that the festival had to offer. After the Gravitron, they made their way to the haunted hayride, where Elena clung tightly to Tanya's arm. Rather than last year's nondescript monster cutouts, many of which had been deemed offensive by the local homeowners association, this year the monsters had been replaced with spooky knights. It seemed fear of the natural order was still fresh in everyone's minds. The group tried their luck at various carnival games, Cece's forearms giving her a one-up at the hoop shot. Overloading the system within her 20-second period, Cece won a humongous plush bat, which she immediately gifted to Elena. The little girl hugged the soft toy close. Everyone sampled an array of festival foods, from pumpkin spice funnel cake to caramel apples drizzled in chocolate. Vic got his long fangs stuck in one of the apples, one of which he had a crown on, so the group had to run it under warm water until the caramel came loose. While the kids had their fun, Drew stuck around the beer tent for the most part, keeping an occasional eye on them as they walked by. He just wanted to get his mind off of the upcoming performance. Speaking of which, he hadn't even seen his bandmates yet. What was taking them so long? Walking past the petting zoo, Elena tugged on Andy's sleeve. "Can we go see the animals?" she asked. Andy grinned from ear to ear. "Yeah, let's do it." Several pens lined with hay and mulch were open for any child to blindly wander into. Luckily for them, these were domesticated beasts with good manners. Miniature drakes huffed at small puffs of smoke. A group of fluffy jackalopes hopped about. Andy was drawn to the bolter pens near the river, where a group of the giants were docked. Vic and Elena visited the Perrytons in the meanwhile. Elena giggled as she scratched at their feathery manes. After spending a good few minutes among the critters, and losing track of time, Drew had found the group all crowded around a pile of sleeping drakes. He whistled to them. "Hey, almost showtime. You kids coming?" Andy looked almost offended that Drew would wake these blissful sleeping things. However, it appeared that they had more to do yet. Everyone washed their hands and got moving. The sky's bright blue had softened, the afternoon sun relaxing as it lazily approached the horizon. Drew checked his pocket watch, his face paling beneath the white makeup. Deep breaths. The group made their way onto the main stage, where a large crowd had already been gathered. Mr. Hudson's band was finishing up their set, the last notes drawing out for dramatic effect into a roar of applause. Followed by the others, Drew headed toward the backstage. A few security guards stood up to check him in. Cece gave Drew a hug, her bells jingling. "You're gonna do great!" Vic clapped Drew on the back. "Knock 'em dead, man!" Even Elena piped up with a "good luck!" Andy and Tanya stayed quiet, the both of them giving a thumbs up. Drew gave Cece one last pat on the arms before heading up. As he disappeared backstage, the rest of the group made their way into the crowd to find seats. The festival grounds had slowly transformed into a sea of eager supernaturals. Colorful streamers and twinkling lights crisscrossed overhead, like a light show above the audience's heads. Andy led the way, gently guiding Elena through the throng of monsters, the rest bouncing quickly behind him. Finally reaching some empty chairs, the group settled in. Andy helped the little girl into her seat, making sure she was comfortable. Vic plopped down next to them, then Tanya, then Cece at the very end of the row. The stage lights finally dimmed. A hush fell over the crowd as fog began to billow in from all sides of the stage. However, for a moment, it seemed like everyone had been left waiting for a bit too long. Where was the band? The crowd began to murmur and murmur until, there, a lone figure emerged from the smoke. Drew stepped into the spotlight, gripping his guitar tightly, his fingers trembling, sweat dripping down his temples. "Ladies and gents," Drew's voice boomed through the speakers, slightly shaky. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, it doesn't look like Acid Age is going to be joining us tonight." A collective groan rippled through the audience. Cece's face fell. "However," Drew continued, taking in a deep breath, "I'm still here, and I very much plan on giving the people exactly what they want." The crowd slowly broke into a cautious cheer, the disappointment of a moment ago nearly forgotten. Still, there seemed to be some tension in the room as to whether or not Drew was going to pull it off. The man strummed a guitar once. A crow of metal echoed through the fairgrounds. The crowd grew silent as the man began to work his magic. His fingers danced across the fretboard, launching off into a blazing riff. The crowd went wild, bobbing their heads to the rhythm. As he transitioned into the chorus, fingers shredding the strings, a rumble began to build beneath the crowd's feet, hardly noticeable at first. It was quiet, low, but beginning to grow. Plastic cups rattled on the tables, the streamers overhead ominously swayed. A few audience members exchanged worried glances, but most thought it was all part of the show. Drew, lost in the music, played on. A violent tremor rocked the festival grounds. People stumbled, struggling to keep their balance. Elena clung to Andy's arm, squealing. The music screeched to a halt as Drew nearly lost his footing. He grabbed the microphone stand to steady himself. "What the hell?" he said, the words echoing through the speakers. Another powerful quake shook the earth. Screams erupted from the crowd as people scrambled to evacuate. Tents collapsed, rides groaned and creaked dangerously. "Everyone stay calm," Hudson's voice boomed from over the loudspeakers. "Please exit the festival grounds in an orderly fashion." But his words were drowned out by panicked shrieks. Tanya went to scoop Elena up in her arms, Andy close behind. Vic and Cece pushed through the crowd, trying to clear a path. As they neared the exit, a deafening crack split the air. The ground beneath their feet splintered and fractured. Fissures snaked across the cobblestones, widening into gaping chasms. And from those chasms a sea of red noses and painted faces emerged from the depths. Thousands upon thousands of clunes poured forth, their fluffy, multicolored bodies bouncing up and down, their grins wide. The tiny creatures swarmed over everything in their path, a living tide of vicious piñatas. Andy watched on as the horde engulfed people left and right. Cece shrieked as a mass of the things latched onto her costume, dragging her down into the writhing sea of fur. "Cece!" Vic cried out, reaching for her, though another surge of clunes knocked him off balance, sweeping him away in the same direction. Before he could mouth a single spell, his voice was muffled by the sea of fluff. Tanya fought valiantly to clear the path, but there were simply too many. The clunes swarmed up to her legs, weighing her down. With a growl of frustration, she and Elena toppled backward into the surging mass. Andy shouted as he reached for Elena's hand, watching as she was about to be consumed by the tide of the creatures. Tightly he latched on, determined not to lose her too. The girl trembled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Help me!" she whimpered, a few of the things crawling across her face. "I've got you!" Andy said. He pulled her with all his might, Elena just about breaking free from their grip. Just then, a particularly large surge of clunes slammed into them from behind. Andy stumbled, his grip on Elena's hand loosening. Their fingers slipped apart. Elena screamed as the clune tide swallowed her whole. Andy lunged for her, but he was already being dragged away. He caught one last glimpse of her terrified face before she vanished into the nearby fissure. Tanya's arm wrapped protectively around her as they both vanished into the darkness below. All his friends, gone in an instant, swallowed whole along with the stage. And Elena,
He'd promised to keep her safe. He failed her. The clunes surged around Andy's ankles, threatening to drag him under as well, but a fire ignited in his chest. Something had snapped. A primal roar tore from Andy's throat as adrenaline surged through his veins. His pupils flashed, coarse fur sprouted sparingly across his face and arms as his meek form now strained against the fabric of his costume. Sharp claws extended from his fingertips, glinting in the fading festival lights. Andy swung his arms wildly, swatting away small swarms of clunes. His superhuman strength sent the creatures flying through the air, their squeaky honks cut short as they slammed into nearby tents and booths. Fading fast, Andy could catch a whiff of Elena's scent. He charged forward, plowing through the writhing mass of fur and painted faces. Clunes crunched and popped beneath his feet as he sprinted toward the chasm. His claws tore through any creatures that dared cling to him. Andy skidded to a halt along the edge of the yawning fissure, peering down into the darkness below. The stench of something rotten assaulted his senses. With hesitation, he crouched down, calves coiling like springs. "I'm coming, fellas!" Andy launched himself into the chasm, plummeting into the dark.